Okay, everybody. Welcome to this study hall. Um, Making sure the other sound is down. But yeah, hello, welcome to this study hall now. It's music theory and composition study hall for those of you who want it. Do this almost every Friday now, like clockwork. So go ahead and submit to me your questions either in the chat or in the comments, or actually, if you are willing to basically talk to me about it, we can go ahead and uh, get talk about whatever subjects you guys want to talk about, and I will be here um, for you guys. And whatever subjects we could talk about, I could also put these in little chunks on um, YouTube, maybe as separate videos, or possibly do maybe a little on-demand videos at a later point. I like to, have little pauses in between subjects and answers to questions so that I can actually um, do little divisions of videos, so I could put different videos on different channels or things like that. So anybody here need anything? This is a music theory study hall. And in these types of classes, I don't really have a specific plan. Uh, don't really have a specific study plan in place. It's normally just you bring your questions about music theory or composition of music to me, and then I answer them. So let me go ahead and unmute the class. Hello. Hey, how are you? Okay, cool. Go ahead. Well, the thing is, there's this thing called inharmonic pitches, inharmonic equivalence, which has a lot to do with how things are spelled. Just like in sort of like the English language, you have different spellings of different words. It's kind of the same thing with the notes. They can have alternate spellings. So you can have in some different keys, you can have uh, F, B, E sharp instead, because the E doesn't have a black key right up from it, right next to it. So to sharp the E, they would want to go to the next key to the right. So they would call that. Yeah. So, and then same with the B sharp. B sharp would be the same as C natural, right? But in order to keep that B tonality, if they wanted to spell it as a B centered note, they'd say, okay, well, it's sharping the B, so it's B sharp. Yeah. I hope that kind of puts a spin on it. Hopefully that kind of answers it. Yeah. Yeah, like if you, because there's the in the scales and the concept of like major scales and minor scales and all that stuff, it gets kind of weird because when they start going, okay, let's play a D sharp minor scale or D sharp major scale or something, or a D sharp minor scale or something, or G sharp minor scale. Well, right away, G sharp is right in the center of the black notes, right? It's like right the three, it's the three black note group. It's like right in the center there. And I was opening up my scale book the other day, and I'm saying, okay, well, if it's a harmonic minor scale, which means that seventh tone in that scale is going to be raised just slightly, That means it's not going to be just an F sharp, it's going to be F double sharp, which is basically G natural. But the reason why they have that is because when they have the scale like that, they want to have every note represented, every note in that alphabet of that scale represented. So if they want to have a G centered note, which is G sharp, they want to have an A centered note, which is A sharp, they want a B centered, C centered, D centered, E centered, F centered, and G centered. So they want to have every one accounted for. So that's because if you have double G's, it looks kind of weird. Yeah. So that's kind of why they do that spelling differently. Yeah. Sure. Like, can you go into more detail a little bit? Too short. Well, I think the concept that you're getting at is whether that instrument would be a transposing instrument, because there's a lot of different things. There's different instruments have different. There's a group called the C instruments, which are like flute, which are piano. Those, you read it and C, it sounds like C, right? So you don't read it in a different key and it sounds in a different key. There's no transposition. Um, but then there are things like clarinets that transpose like a second higher than the C. There's French horns that transpose a fifth higher, that kind of stuff. So in terms of your question, you could still have like a piece in D. Let's say you have a piece for clarinet in B flat, which is just a B flat clarinet and piano. Let's say you want the piece to be in uh, what do you say, D major, right? So if you want that, you could still have it. But what you'll have, I'm gonna bring something up real quick if you don't mind. I'm gonna actually do one of those little examples. I'm gonna show you what I mean, just so that you get an idea. Because you can actually have that, but it'll be different in the clarinet. The clarinet will actually have a different key signature than D. It'll sound in D major, but it'll have a different written key signature to sound the same. So let's say you have piano and you have, let's pick woodwinds. We're going to pick woodwinds. We're going to pick clarinet and B flat. And we're going to go this way. So we're just going to go, I'm just going to have it in D major here. And here we are. Oops, I got to share the screen with you. So let me do that real quick. So let me see. Here we are. I think you can see it, hopefully. It's just blank. So you see how the key signature of a top instrument is different than the key signature in the piano? Yeah. So it's actually, yeah. Let's see. Let me make sure that I am on this right. Yeah. So actually the top key signature has four sharps, which would be actually be E. So it's a second up. So it's a major second up from D, which is E. And the piano is in D. So, but if you play, let's say if you had piano has this kind of thing. It has a DFA sort of chord, DF sharp A. Well, if you want the clarinet to sound like a D, you have to write it write an E for it to play that, to sound like that. Does that make sense? Because it transposes up a little. So as long as you're aware that if that instrument transposes, then it won't throw it off. As long as you're aware of whether or not the instrument transposes. Now, not all the instruments transpose. There's a big list of what are called C instruments, like flute, flute, strings. Uh, there's different things. Pianos don't transpose. They do. Trombones don't. All of that. So, yeah, there's a big list that don't transpose, but there's some in the woodwind category and in the brass category, especially, that do. So you have to be kind of mindful of those. All right. Does that kind of answer the question there? Um, well, I know I've used both GarageBand and Logic Pro. I have both on this computer, this machine. And actually, if it was the audio of that, probably yes, because you would be the semitones, the sound of the keys by semitones would be off slightly. If you had, yeah, it would be clashing a bit. It'd be like one semitone off. You'd be like cringing and be like, ew. So you'd want to make sure that you have both on an equal key there. Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of times, I'll write something in GarageBand or in Logic sometimes, and I'll try to transpose it afterwards because I'll try and sing it, and then it'll be like, this is way too high for my voice. And so I'll try to like use there's like a transposition bar to the left where you can actually go, okay, transpose at -1, -2, -3, semitones, whatever. And sometimes I'm like, why didn't it transpose correctly? And so it's all like weird. So I have to make sure I do it to every instrument selected so it's not like certain instruments are not transposing and some are. You have to make sure they're all selected. And sometimes you have to say transpose whole selection or you know, make sure it's all selected, like shift select all or something. And then just kind of make sure they're all on that -3 or -2 or whatever you're putting it on. Yeah, that'll work. Yep, that's good. But you get it from both the logic, the production standpoint, and also the composition standpoint. There are two different answers. Yeah, so it's pretty cool. Yeah, that's okay. You're free to go. I just do this for students to come if they have problems, they can always come here. And I do this every Friday. So at this time, if it's good for them. if it's good for students. So if they need to, they just pop on. I do other theory classes where it's more structured, like it's more of a lesson plan kind of thing. But I really thought there wasn't like a study hall class where, they could just say, okay, I don't get that. I don't get this. I don't get this. I don't get this. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go over this. It kind of gives me stuff to teach somewhat. Kind of gives me some fuel too, you know. So, and it, just gives me more space to help people. So it's really cool that way. All right, thank you. I'll see you later. See you soon. Yeah, bye. Alex is joined. Okay, Alex. Any other questions, you guys? I know Jay is joined. Alex, anybody? Music theory is about the how composers actually write music, how it's written, what notes we use, um, different note values, different uh, time signatures that we write in, how to play music that's actually written. Um, for example, if I were to pull up this, if I were to pull up something like this, maybe I could show it. Let's see. I gotta pull this up. Hang on just a sec. So music theory is the study of writ. Well, those could be music producers. Those are more like beat makers, music producers, and they could work as composers as well. They can make beats as well as the melodic stuff, or melodies or harmonies too. They could do both. But yeah, this is kind of what's in the screen here is basically some music that I've written. And it's basically music theory is the study of analyzing what another composer has written, analyzing stuff like melody, harmony, rhythm, that kind of stuff. So the staff lines that you see, each line represents uh, where a note could be placed. So you can have uh, one line on a line, and then or one note on a line and one note on a space, so, space between two lines. So you can have uh, all the way up. So you can have, for instance, in the higher clefs, you can have um, E for first one on a line. You can have F on a space, G on a line, A on a space, B on a line, C on a space, D on a line, E on a space, and it just keeps going up. The musical alphabet, basically the note names, are A through G. They cycle through over and over and over, about 7 or 8 times, because that's how many octaves we have. And the octaves are the cycles that I referred to, of how many times it goes through A through G. So, and those staff lines are basically where we write the notes. Basically, that's where the notes will be written to show you, okay, these are the notes that you play. These are the notes that the composer has written. So I hope that clears that up. And then there are other different musical symbols. Um, some of them are below those black lines that you may see. Um, those are more like uh, crescendos, those curved lines that are called slurs. Those actually have to do with um, smoothing out melodic text, smoothing out textures, um, phrase markings, all that sort of stuff. And there's like uh, ties where you tie one note to another that's the same note name. So it actually gets a longer time being held out. Uh, and then you have volume or dynamics, which are these little symbols, double P, and you have MP, which is the mezzo piano, all of this. And you have forte, which is loud, playing loud at this point. Then you have piano at this point. It's all different sorts of dynamic levels. So there's a bunch of different symbols that you would encounter in music. And that's where basically music theory is, and that's basically a language all of its own. So any other questions like that? Yeah, there are. There, yeah. Sometimes they'll have a vocal slash piano slash guitar sheets, meaning they'll have like, well, the vocal is the singing one. The vocal is the one at the top. It'll have it'll have something like this. I'm gonna do something real quick. Let me show you. Don't get rid of that. Just kind of go up here. I'm gonna actually show it to you. So a lot of times they'll have something like this. And then let me just put that up there. And now I got to share it. So let's do this. Stop share just for a little and share. So here we go. We have a 3-staff sort of arrangement here. Let me see. Here would be the voice. Here would be the singing. Here would be the singer's part. That's their staff there. Here's the accompaniment part, the piano and the voice, or the piano part right here, the accompanying part right here. That's the instrumental. So a lot of times they'll have a voice part at the top, singing part at the top, and the piano part at the bottom. So a lot of times they'll have that, and that's how it's arranged. And you'll have songbooks that'll have that arrangement in it. They'll have on each staff, the higher you go on each staff is higher pitches, and the lower ones lower ones on each of these stabs are lower pitches. So these down here would be lower, higher, higher, higher up there. And then same thing with this. This is a lower treble pitch right here. Then it goes to middle, then it goes to higher, then higher. Then this is lower, mid, and then higher up here. So there you go. But they all have their own little clefs also. These clefs actually tell you basically how high to play in as well. But yeah, usually if it's a voice and piano score or singing and piano score, you'd have the voice up here, singing up here. You'd have the lyrics down below this one staff. And you have your piano part and these two accompanying the singer. So that's usually how that goes. Does that make sense? Okay. This one right here, that's just a bar line. You have to have bar lines because in music, everything is made into groups of notes, meaning this has 4 notes in each measure and then a bar line, 4 notes in each measure and then a bar line. That's the rhythm that it is. This 4/4 right here, that tells you how many notes are in the measure before the bar line. And this bottom number tells you that the quarter note, which is the one that gets 4, that's the unit that gets the beat. And these are basically the bar lines that separate measures of music from one another. So you play one measure and then you play the next one, and the next one, and the next one, kind of like that. But the reason they're down like this is because this piano right here has both high clef, treble clef, and a low clef, bass clef, meaning one person plays both of these staves. So, because we have 2 hands as piano players, treble staff would usually be the right hand. The bass one, the bottom one, would usually be for the left hand. So we would normally play, you know, we would normally play this with the left hand and this with the right. But the reason why the bar lines go all the way down is because of this brace here says, okay, well, since these 2 stabs belong to one instrument, the bar line has to go all the way down so it reaches both stabs. So it's called a grand staff. Grand staff is 2 or more stabs in one combination. All right. Does that make sense? Yeah, so the piano itself, the top the middlemost staff right here, that's for the right hand. The bottom staff right here is for the left. See? Right hand, left hand. So if the piano player, the accompanying player, is playing this, right hand to be here, left hand to be here. Well, this space right here, all of this stuff where I put notes in, these are bars or measures. You'll hear it called bars or measures, either one. And that's basically the unit where we say, okay, this is what these units of music, groups of music are called, measures of music. Does that make sense? Depending on what this, well, and that's all depending on what this, the time signature says. The time signature is this baby right here. You see that? Let me view it in a closer view. Maybe you could see it. Is that better or is that too close? You see this right here? This 4/4 means 4 beats per measure, and the quarter note, which is the bottom 4, gets 1 beat. But that number can change. You can change the time signature can change. You can also do this. Oops. You could change it to 3/4. Well, this would mean 3 of those quarter notes but it just means 3/4, which means 3, and then the 4 on the bottom means quarter note gets 1 beat. So the 4 stays the same, but the 3 just means there's 3 beats in a measurement, and the quarter note gets a beat. Okay, so that it can change. It just depends on the song. If they're in 4/4, if they're in 3/4, or if they decide to change it mid-song, they can do that. The bottom number can also change, but that's actually quite a different change. Now, if the bottom number changes, look out, because if the bottom number were to change, then what that means is the bottom number refers to what note gets 1 beat in a measure, or what beat equals 1 beat in a measure. So if the bottom number changes from 4 to 2, 2 stands for the half note. So if I change from 3/4 to 3/2, that means I can put 3 half notes in this measurement. And that means the half note now gets the beat pulse. See, so it's a little different now. So this can change as well. So that's kind of tricky. So these can change, but they have different qualifiers, different ways of changing. The bottom number only changes by multipliers of 2. So like 2, 4, 8, 16, that kind of stuff. So you won't have a 5 on the bottom, you won't have a 6 on the bottom. You'll have those 2 for half note, 4 for quarter note, 8 for eighth note, 16 for 16th note, so on. So Yeah, you have that kind of stuff. So top number will tell you, top number tells you how many notes are in each measure. But the bottom number tells you what duration of note gets one beat. So what type of note gets one beat in that measure. So in 3/4, they're saying the quarter note, which is what the 4 is on the bottom, is the unit of measure that gets one beat. If it's 2 on the bottom, that's telling you that the half note's getting one beat now. Yeah, the note would be like this. It would be a half note. Look. Yeah, it would change. It would change quite a bit. And so therefore, when if I were to put that same, let's say I tried to put the same 3/4 rhythm in, let's say if I tried to put, the quarter notes in there, there's going to be 6 quarter notes in the space of 3 half notes now. It's going to be doubled. But it'll be still 3/2, but the quarter note now is getting half a beat rather than one beat because of this 2. Because this 2 says the half note gets one beat now. So the quarter note has to get half a beat now, and then so on down the line. So it's kind of confusing because this changes the whole equation. Like let's say if we went back to 3/4, I'm gonna just change that back. Oops, hold on. Just gonna rev that back right up there. And let's go and change that back to 3/4, and I'm just gonna do this. Say we have our 3/4 measure, right? So that gets 3 beats in a measure, and the quarter note gets one beat. So each quarter note gets one beat, so it's counted 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. If we had 8 notes in 3/4, 2 eighth notes equal 1 quarter note in this case. So that would mean each eighth note gets a half of one beat. So a half a beat. Okay, right? Are you following so far? No. So this stands for quarter note. So everything that's like this, or like this, for example, the values are getting smaller. Basically, they're getting smaller as you go down. So what this basically means is we were to take this. So this is counted 1, 2, 3. That's what it would be counted as. So each note gets one beat in that measure because it's a quarter note. 4 stands for quarter on this one. So this is quarter. And this is 3 notes. 3 notes. And then in this one, if you broke the quarter note up into, like halves, it would be this one. It would be the 8 notes. 1, oops. 1, 2, and 3. And these little pluses are and signs. So that's what those would be. Oops. Okay, so they get a little bit smaller. So if I were to write down underneath, let's say I can go to this one and go right underneath this. I can go like that and go, okay, this is one. I wish I could write like a line or something down. And we can do that. Go like this. Here we go. Line from here down to there. There's your one. There's two. If it will allow me to write it. There you go. Two. And there's three. So that's how you break those up. So that's how those are broken up, right? Does that visual make any sense? Does that make a little bit more, at least a little bit more? Because how that breaks it up still doesn't. Well, just remember that these, you could have you could place a quarter note underneath, you know where this 4 is? You could place a quarter note underneath the 3. They sometimes write the time signature like that too. I'm not sure where they do that in this program, but you can actually, there probably is a way to write it as 3 with a quarter note underneath. And that would give you the same thing. And then same thing, if it was 4/4, it would be 4 with a quarter note underneath. So let's see. Create that. Let's see. Maybe I can create it on here. Maybe if there's a way. Because I want to actually show you what I mean here. Engraver. So right. Yeah. The bottom number just tells you what type of note are they referring to. What type of note are they referring to is in each bar. Yeah. Sorry. I tried to save it. I tried to say it somewhat, but maybe I just missed it. Well, there's quite a bit. There's the quarter note. There's half note. There's dotted notes. There's at least a good 10, 12 different types of notes. Note durations in a way. That are, different note rhythms, different note durations that you could choose from. And so, yeah, it's quite a bit. So I would probably want to stick with the simple ones first, like the quarters and the halves and the whole notes and stuff, and then move on to eighths, and then move on to the other ones, and then move on to what are called dotted notes, which look something like, oops, something like this. And you can have a dotted note in 3/4. You could have this. See that? See this right here? That's 1, 2, and the dot adds 1 count to the 2 that are already there. So it's 2 plus 1 equals 3. So it's going to be three notes right there. So it's going to be 3 beats. So that already takes up the 3 out of the 3 beats that are supposed to be in there. So that takes up the whole measure. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, I would stick to basic notes first, and then I would go to in the time signature. Note with the dot would be the dotted half note, which would be 3. It would be 1, 2, 3. You'd be counting it just one clap, and it'd be 1, 2, 3. All three counts will be in one note. It'd just be like this, how it would be counted. Let's look. Let's see. 1, 2, oops. 1, 2, 3, just like that. All 3 beats go under that note. It holds for. It'd be 3. It would still be in 3/4. Yep, because you're doing the equivalent of you're either doing 3/4 notes or the equivalent of 3/4 notes, which the dotted half in 3/4 would give you 2 beats plus 1 beat equals 3 beats in the 3/4 tone. So it would give you all 3 in one note. So here you have 3 separate quarter notes, right? And then you have all 3 counts in one. So it'll just it's like if you were to, I don't know if you've heard of this before, where you tie notes together. Let's say if you were to have that. I don't know if that looks familiar. If you were to tie a note or two together. If you do that, that means you hit the note once, and then you just hold it. So you just hit it and hold it for however long it says to hold it, like this. So that there's 3 quarter notes, so you just hit it on the one and hold it for the rest of them. And that's what that tie is for. And that's what this would equal. So you just hit it and wait till the third count is up. Yeah, because it's still, this equals this, basically. This and this are the same. It's just 2 different ways of writing it. The dotted note like this, dot Yeah. So the dotted half note that I have on the page and the three quarter notes that have the little, the little curves underneath them. Yes. Yeah. Yep. It's just a different way to notate to notate it. Yep. So that's kind of how that goes. It's a little confusing. Yeah. Yep. Because they still have the essence of quarter note in them, which is the four on the bottom, and they have essentially three, what the equivalent of three quarter notes in it, all three. Well, in some circumstances, doing all the ones with the curved lines underneath them, sometimes that is good for showing where the beats differ when playing. And sometimes it gets to be a little hard to read if there's too much of that. It's simpler if you have a note that actually will equal all three that you can read. If it's not, you know, if it's not too much. Because sometimes those notes that are tied together, that's what they're called, the curved lines underneath on the right side, or they're ties. They're tying the notes to each other. Sometimes that's a little bit more difficult to read in various cases. So that's why they would use more of just the dotted half to simplify it, and rather than always doing the tie. Uh, does that make does that answer the question? They could write it either way. Commonly, if it's simple music, they'll probably write it the dotted quarter or dotted half if they're really writing it simply. Because in some instances the tied notes look a little weird. But if it's let's say it's in a different let's say if you have something that's in a different rhythm that's like really really hard to catch, really really hard to read, maybe the tied rhythms would actually be a better help. So in another case maybe they would help more, but in this case you don't need the ties. You just have that simplified note there, and that'll tell you. So does that work? Okay. It's still 1, 2, 3, even if it's got the ties on it, because you still hold it out the same way. But it's just a simplified way to put it in. Yeah. Yep. 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 Yeah. You don't strike it three different times. You just hold it, strike it once, hold it. So well, I could probably do both. I I have experience using both Logic and uh, the actually the little brother of Logic, GarageBand. But I do use Logic Pro X more. Uh, but I have both the classical training and the different stuff too. So it's uh, if you did a traditional degree, probably a lot of the it depends on what sub a lot of special different specialty you go into because there's a lot of different subspecialties that you can go into with music degrees. They even have popular music um, subspecialties that you can go into at some schools now. So it just depends on what you'd like to take. Um, they have lots for screen scoring, scoring for film. They have uh, beat per, score things for beat producers. Producing beats, that kind of stuff too. So it's all in what you just got to find what you really want to do. Yeah. Yeah, like mine when I went to, because I went to a state school here in California. So I went and got the traditional music composition degree, but I also got a music technology degree, which is recording arts. So I did both of those, but I did I did for the composition, I did basically the classical slash jazz kind of stuff, which is this sort of thing. And then for the tech, I did more of a pop songwriting, film scoring type of thing. So there were two different things going on. But yeah, I did those. But it depends on what sort of school you go to. I just went to 4 year university, but um, you can go to like Musicians Institute or different private schools too. Different di Yeah, well, I actually got scholarships to go, but yes, pretty much. I mean, and you could do, and it just depends on what you really feel like doing. I mean, sometimes the classical music isn't for everybody. Sometimes you want to just do beat production or song production. You can do that. There are tons of recording schools for that and producing schools for that too. You just Well, I record, yes. Yeah. Well, I think for me, from what I've heard and from what I have researched, I think the most famous ones, they have a little bit of they not only have the production chops, the big mastering production chops, and they know how to put the sound together, but they really know how to orchestrate the sound so that it comes off, the best. It has the best audio fidelity. It has, you know, the sonics are good. You know, um, I think of all the Beatle records, and how well they were put together. There, they, there was a lot of orchestration involved, which is a different study of sort of music theory, sort of composition, but there was a lot of that involved too. They had to really lean on the producer to help them produce the backing tracks for their songs. So the well, I mean, it actually is. It is about what you can create and how you can create it, how you're going to attack it. What sounds could you use? What sounds could you come up with? Um, what in what ways could you astound people's ears? You know, because you really want to captivate their ears. You really want to surprise them. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, whatever is surprising to the crowd. If you look on the top, even the top 40, you could see uh, what's surprising to most now and what's going for hits now. But yeah, it's it's knowledge and application. So you can have all the knowledge and not apply it, and that would be sort of incomplete. But knowing how to apply the knowledge and sort of get behind it and be creative, that's what makes the difference. So, well, creativeness and also, collaborative nature. You also have to have that collaborative spirit, within yourself and with other people too. You know, respecting other people's ideas, of course. You know, like I've worked with, another, you know, lesser known uh, couple of writers who, I was orchestrating for them, and you know, we had our we had some disagreements, but we pulled it together. And I would say, okay, well, what about I would orchestrate something, and they'd come back with, okay, well, this is okay, but this isn't. Could you do a little bit more high intensity stuff around this measure? And so I kind of lean towards their interest and do what more of what they wanted. Yeah, it's a very delicate balance. Yeah, it's a delicate balance. Yeah, yeah. So it's it's that's why it's called, well, that's why it's an art, is because it's very delicate balance. And you just have to keep, it's like you keep chipping away at it, until you get. Yeah, they could hear differences, and they could even hear slight differences in production technique. They can hear, oh, well, this sounds a little off, or you could hear slight differences in volume, slight differences in diction, and different things. It just depends. Yeah, well, that's one way. Yeah, that's what, at least that's the way today to do it. I mean, uh, they used to, not everybody gets there. Nope. Yeah, that's true. It just depends on what, certain promoters or producers are looking for. It's really up to the business. Yeah, it depends on the business. Yeah, nuance. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of stylistic stuff goes into it. Yep. Well, I guess we're actually out of time for the class, but I did enjoy it. So I'm glad to have answered at least some of the questions. I hope I didn't confuse too much. Um, I actually like doing this kind of class because I like to just have a discussion. I like to have one class where it's just a discussion. Or yeah, I mean, I did some collaborations before I graduated too, but uh, afterwards when I got to do more of collaborations and more of my own stuff, it was better. You know, yeah, I liked not being on a because when I was in composition, I was often on a time clock. We had quarter systems at the university, which was 2 months to compose a piece. So it was rather tight. So it was like I liked not having the tight deadlines and I could just kind of, take my time with stuff. So, so yeah, it's much better once you get out, or at least to me. Yeah. Well, at least to me, I felt like I was running around a lot in college, but now it's like, okay, now I get to kind of take it easy. All right. Well, I think that'll do. Uh, I hope you'll come back. I do have these classes, this type of like this music theory sort of study hall, composition sort of study hall class every Friday at about 2. So if you'd like to come back, you're more than welcome. Um, and yeah, I'd love to actually see you guys again, see you again. And I will put up more, I guess Take Listens does a lot of on-demand videos too that you could watch like on your own, I guess. And they allow instructors to put those up too. So I'll be putting some up there as well. And maybe those will help music theory wise and stuff like that. So, all right. All right. It was great to chat. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.